I'm 81 years old. I woke up this morning before the sun like I usually do now, and the house was quiet in a way it never used to be. That kind of quiet has a weight to it. It presses on your chest if you let it. I've been thinking a lot about money lately, not because I want more of it. That part is over. I think about it because for most of my life, I thought money was the thing standing between me and peace. I thought once I had enough, I'd finally be able to rest. I didn't understand how slippery the word enough really was. These days, I move slower. My knees complain before my mind does. I make coffee and sit at the table, staring out the window, not really looking at anything. I know I'm closer to the end than the beginning. That changes how honest you're willing to be. I'm not telling this because I need to unburden myself. I'm telling it because I don't have much use for secrets anymore. When I was young, retirement felt imaginary, like something that happened to other people, old men with pensions and gold watches. I didn't see myself there. I saw decades stretching out in front of me, full of work, full of plans. In my 20s, I got my first steady job. Nothing glamorous, an office job with decent pay and a predictable rhythm. I remember feeling proud of myself. I'd put on a tie, pack a lunch, and tell myself I was doing things right. I met my wife around that time. We were both tired and hopeful in equal measure. We talked about the future the way young people do, with confidence and very little detail. A house, kids, stability. The word retirement didn't come up much, except as a distant reward for staying on track. In my 30s, life sped up. Promotions, mortgage payments, two children who grew faster than I expected. There was always something to save for. School clothes, repairs, vacations we took more for the kids than ourselves. I started putting money away because everyone said I should. A percentage here, a contribution there. I didn't really understand it, but it felt responsible. I told myself I was securing our future. That phrase meant something to me. It sounded solid. What I didn't realize was how often I used the future as an excuse. When my wife asked if we could take a weekend off, I'd say maybe next month. When my kids wanted me at their school events, I'd promise to make the next one. There was always something pressing at work, always a reason to delay. I wasn't unhappy. That's important to say. I felt useful, needed. People relied on me. That mattered more to me than I admitted. In my 40s, the idea of enough shifted. It wasn't just about covering bills anymore. It was about matching what I saw around me. Bigger houses, better cars, conversations at work about early retirement, about numbers that sound enormous. I started doing the math in my head. If I just work a few more years, if I pushed a little harder, if I didn't slow down now, I told myself it was temporary. The cost of that thinking was subtle. It didn't arrive all at once. It crept in through missed dinners and tired evenings, through conversations cut short because I needed to check something, through a growing distance I didn't have a name for at the time. My kids became teenagers. They needed less from me, or maybe they learned to stop asking. I was still present, technically. I was there. But my mind was often somewhere else, counting, planning, worrying. My wife noticed before I did. She'd sit quietly sometimes, looking at me like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I wish I'd asked her what she was thinking. I didn't. I assumed we'd talk later. Later is a dangerous word. In my 50s, my body started sending small warnings. Nothing dramatic, a little pain here, fatigue that lingered longer than it used to. Doctors told me to slow down. I nodded and kept moving. Retirement started to feel closer and somehow farther away at the same time. The target kept shifting. Markets changed. Plans adjusted. The number I thought was enough quietly grew. I didn't notice when my marriage became more about logistics than connection. We coordinated schedules. We shared responsibilities. We rarely sat together without a purpose. We were efficient. We were tired. Then my wife got sick. It wasn't sudden. That's what still haunts me. There was time, or at least I thought there would be. Doctor visits replaced date nights. Conversations became practical. Medication schedules, appointments. I told myself I'd be more present once things stabilized. They never did. She died 3 months after her diagnosis. I remember sitting in the hospital room, holding her hand, realizing that the future I'd been protecting no longer existed. Retirement came not long after. I stopped working because it no longer made sense to keep going. The numbers on paper said I could afford to stop. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I expected relief. What I felt instead was emptiness. The day stretched out, the structure vanished. I had money in the bank and nowhere to put my energy. The silence of the house grew louder. I started noticing how little I'd practiced being still. I thought retirement would be a reward. I didn't understand it was a transition that required preparation of a different kind. I had enough to live on, enough to be comfortable, enough to not worry about the lights being turned off. But comfort is a narrow definition of safety. I didn't have enough practice sitting with myself. I didn't have enough deep relationships outside my immediate family. I didn't have enough memories that weren't tied to work or responsibility. My kids visited when they could. They had their own lives. I didn't blame them. I'd taught them how to be busy. I spent money on things I thought might fill the space. Trips, gadgets, small indulgences. None of it lasted. Experiences felt hollow without someone to share them with. That's when I realized something uncomfortable. The question isn't how much money is enough to retire comfortably. The real question is what kind of life you're retiring into. Money can buy time, but it can't teach you how to use it. It can remove pressure, but it can't give you purpose. I learned that too late. I started thinking back over my life, trying to pinpoint where I'd gone wrong. That wasn't helpful. I hadn't made foolish decisions. I'd done what seemed reasonable at the time. That's the hardest part. Most regrets don't come from obvious mistakes. They come from sensible choices repeated too often. I assumed there would always be more time to talk, more time to travel, more time to rest. I treated time like a renewable resource. It isn't. There are things I can't fix now. I can't go back and listen more carefully. I can't show up for moments that already passed. I can't tell my wife that I finally understand what she was asking for. That knowledge sits with you. It doesn't shout, it just stays. These days, I live simply. I keep my expenses low. I cook my own meals. I read. I walk when my legs allow it. I talk to neighbors more than I used to. I have enough money. I won't pretend I don't. I'm grateful for that. But I've learned that enough isn't a number, it's a balance. Enough money without enough connection feels empty. Enough savings without enough presence feels hollow. If you're listening to this and you're younger than I am, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in instructions at this stage of life. I'll only tell you what I wish I'd understood. I wish I'd defined enough earlier, before the world defined it for me. I wish I'd noticed how often I postponed living in the name of preparing for life. I wish I'd believed that showing up, even imperfectly, mattered more than optimizing everything. Retirement isn't a finish line, it's just a chapter. And if you don't write the earlier chapters with care, there's not much to read when you get there. I don't fear death the way I used to. What I fear is the quiet realization that I spent too much of my life bracing for a future that arrived stripped of the people I wanted to share it with. I still have good days. I still laugh sometimes. I'm not drowning in regret. But there's a softness now, a sadness that doesn't leave. If this meant something to you, if it stirred anything at all, sit with it for a moment. You don't need to act on it. Just notice it. I'll finish my coffee soon. The sun is up now. The house is still quiet. This is what enough looks like for me now, and I live with it.